All right. I think we can get started. We can get started. People trickle in, but we have a good chunk of people now. If you didn't catch it, maybe grab a piece of paper, a pen, so you can jot down your thoughts, feelings, questions. As you get that, I'll just give us a little briefer what we're going to do today. But first of all, thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us. My name's Adrienne. I'm a member of the Still Kickin community, facilitating some of these get-togethers, these discussions. Last week, we discussed so many different topics, including differences between protests and riots and looting, intersectionality and the need for white people to integrate into the Black community. We talked about white people joining with Black people rather than saving them, creating boundaries around individuals who aren't very supportive of our anti-racism efforts. So much content that we went 30 minutes over actually, and still didn't answer all the questions because there are so many questions. We could spend weeks doing this, but these are just a little way for us to enter into these difficult conversations that frankly none of us are used to having. Many of us aren't used to having, as we've grown up in a society that doesn't really condone these conversations. They don't really support the need for talking about these things. So here we are. We're diving in. We have our fearless leader Jesse, who's going to drop a lot of knowledge bombs like he did last week, I am sure. We also have a surprise, no longer surprise guest. You may have heard of her. Her name is Nora. She's here. She's going to join Jesse in chatting. Nora, welcome. Thanks for being here. Whether you're tuning in again from last week or if you're new, I just want to emphasize that this is a safe space to have difficult conversations. In order to keep it safe, we need to just remember that we're all coming from different points in our journey on anti-racism. Some of us have different ideas. Some of us have different exposure to these concepts. So let's just have a welcoming and respectful presence as we keep in mind that we're all at a different point in our paths, on our journeys. And like I said, we're not used to having these discussions. So we're learning, and with learning comes vulnerability, comes discomfort. And excuse me for kind of going to my yoga instructor roots, but let's get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's what we're going to be as we have more and more of these conversations. We will dive in, but the first thing that I want to encourage you all to do is just listen. Just listen. We're good at talking. We're good at sharing our opinions. But I want you to just listen first to Jesse and listen to his perspectives. And then we'll have time to share our questions, to throw things into the chat, and we'll have some interactive component to it later on. In supporting this listening, set everything aside right now. Set aside your paper, set aside your pen. If you have a burning thought, maybe jot it down really quick. I want to support you in setting aside anything that is going to interfere with your ability to listen without an agenda. Okay? Set it aside. Also, if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. Just do it. Or look off to the side. We're going to take a deep breath in. Fill up your nose, fill up your lungs, fill up with the intention to listen, and sigh it out. Take one more deep breath, inhale, fill up. Open mouth, exhale. All right, here we are. We've made some space. I'm going to shut my mouth and I'm going to listen. Handing it over to you, Jesse.
I don't know if I've ever done that for real with a bunch of people. That was great and weird at the same time. Well, thank you all for joining again. Clearly we ran some people away because you are the chosen few, and that's all right. That was a joke, don't worry. No, we're super excited to be here again. So Nora and I were talking earlier, and if you are, yeah, I'm trying to think of the right word. If you're wired the way that Nora and I are wired, we never actually plan the way you're going to start and open. It just doesn't feel right. It's one of those you're like, I know what I'm gonna say, but I don't, and I'll figure it out once I get there. So I was trying to figure out where I wanted to start, and one of the things I want to make sure I mention. So there was a lot of questions, which I thought was amazing. Thank you. And I'm gonna ask you to type in questions that you have. I'm gonna invite Nora in, and I'm gonna ask her some questions because I thought it was important for you to hear from her specifically, but also from another white woman who's also done some of the work, who I actually like respect and I admire. So, but there was a special on CBS. If it wasn't I think it was yesterday, maybe 2 days ago. I don't know. Literally the days are running together, but it's called Justice for All. And you can watch it again. I actually thought they did a really good, they did a really good job of kind of covering all aspects of what's been happening. A friend of mine was on in the beginning, a guy named PJ Hill, who for some reason protests in suits. I don't even know how he does it, but he had some really good things to say. So I would encourage you to go check that out. And there's a ton of folks. They highlighted a Black woman who's an activist in New York who like got like hit in the head with something. I mean, it's just crazy. They did a really good job finally covering accurate information. And since we've talked, I've talked to a bunch of people, which is great. So thank you all for like taking me up on the offer and signing up to see what you guys are interested in. Some of you all text me. Adrian thought it was weird that I just put my phone number out to the world. But that's kind of the person I am. I really want to make sure that people feel comfortable to just have a conversation. And I see some familiar faces, which is so great too. So I wanted to, so since we've talked, there's been a lot that has happened. And I think it's been great. So there was a question about the police and defunding the police and all these different things. And I'm not going to answer that question right now, but I think that I would encourage you all to do your own research. And what I will say is what I know about what's happening here in Minneapolis is there are tons of people talking about defunding the police, and even Chief Rondo made a statement that he was going to make some changes. What I love about that was, one, he's the first Black police chief that we've had here in Minneapolis, and he also grew up in the city. He also won a lawsuit when he sued the police union for being racist. And so I think we have a really great opportunity in time where we have a leader who gets it and who understands, but also is kind of toting both lines of being a part, like in and of, but also part of community and understanding the changes that need to be made. And so if you've been paying attention, you also saw Mayor Fry get booed away from, it's just been an amazing week of, it's been an amazing week of social media posts. So Nora, I want you to come off mute. I wanted to ask you a few questions. One, and this actually was one of the questions that was in that reached out to me. Why in the world, so you started this organization and ended up having a ton of people that look like you who started giving and being involved, and then 5 years later you decided to hire a Black guy.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's 4 years later, just to get the timeline straight.
My bad.
Yeah. So I was having this conversation actually with Jesse right before we started, because I think that there's a huge difference between the values that you claim to have and claim to hold and the values that you actually end up living. And the difference between those can be stark, and it happens really subtly. So Still Kickin started because my husband died, and everybody came to our rescue. right? He didn't have life insurance. He was 35, I was 31, we had a kid, and over $100,000 was raised by strangers, some friends, but mostly I don't have enough friends to have raised $100,000. Like, I just don't. So $100,000. When I would get drunk at night, which was every night, I would go through GoFundMe, I would go through YouCaring, I would go through all these sites, and I would see how inequitable it was, how somebody's ability to fundraise for themselves was directly tied to the net worth of their friends and family or their marketability. And I knew instinctively that my whiteness played a part in that. I did. I knew that me being a cute, youngish blonde at the time, being married to, a pretty cute, having a cute little baby, that did help pull at heartstrings, because Aaron was not the only person dying of cancer and leaving behind a wife and child. So we had made the choice when we started Still Kickin' that we would give direct grants to people, that we would not make them prove their poverty or their need to us, although that's, people have different opinions on that, and that we would give to people no matter what they were experiencing. So we wouldn't, make this just a cancer organization. We wouldn't make it just, just a anything organization. The fact is, like, we know life is hard, and we know that it's harder for some people than others. So the first Still Kickin' hero we had, and I think this comes down to, like, honestly, what I call moral laziness, right? So if I know that is true, the first hero I picked was a person who also had brain cancer, and he was a white guy in Texas, and he left behind 4 kids and a wife, and yes, he needed that money. Absolutely, that money was well received, and as time went on, we started to realize, wow, when we look at things like just blindly, which is how we chose our heroes, we're only giving money to people who come to us, and the people who come to us look like us. They look like me, because most of my followers are white women, and most of the people who buy our shirts are white women. So we started to make decisions that first year on how we select our heroes and to get more intentional about it. So one of our heroes in 2015 was Black Lives Matter, Minneapolis, which was, it honestly at the time felt like a risk. It felt like a risk, and I will tell you why, because I was not sure that the rest of the community would come along with us. And I'm not sure if we lost people or not. And honestly, looking back, I can say that we could have been doing a better job at living all of those values out loud. So the steps that we took, and again, a mostly white organization looking in on itself, we thought were pretty good. I don't think anybody starts out an organization saying, okay, we're only going to hire people like this, we're only going to serve people like this. But I was cognizant of the fact that I wasn't paying people. And so the people that I felt comfortable asking for favors were also people who came from a certain background, who had enough money, who had the skill set working in advertising, and who already I knew and felt okay asking something for. So not being intentional about every single thing that we did as an organization meant that certain things become habit, and anti-racism work, or even just equity work, any kind of intentional work, requires habit. Like not just falling into bad habits, but being conscious of the habits that you're making. We had a board of directors on our nonprofit as we were establishing our core values. Like, this is 3 years into our organization, by the way, saying like, oh, we should have core values that are separate just from like what Nora thinks and what Nora feels like. And we sat down, and we decided every core value would be more than just one word. It would be, for example, equity over equality. So it's a choice that we're making. And our one Black female board member said, is this a value that we have now, or is this aspirational? And it turns out it was aspirational. Of course it was. Of course it was, because it is not a destination that you arrive at. And even if it were, we weren't there yet. We really weren't. So part of, as we grow Still Kickin' and grow the impact, grow the amount of people that we help, and also as we grow the organization and the people that we hire, like, we have decided to be very intentional about that. And that is how I ended up hiring Jesse. I've worked with Jesse. First of all, Jesse and I did go to high school together. It's the most Minnesota story, which is like, we went to high school together. Yes, that is how I know a lot of people. We all went to high school together. But, and like, Jesse was also doing so much work in a community that reaches far beyond what Still Kickin's Instagram would ever reach, or Still Kickin's email would reach. And so that was an intentional choice, not to just, hire like a regular, like nonprofit person, like who has like all these whatever. I wanted somebody who was dedicated to having difficult conversations, to pushing us, and also to doing work that was outside of the sphere of work that we typically do. Nonprofits tend to run a certain way, and we've never done that. For the first 4 years, we were funded mostly by t-shirt sales. And I have to say that was bizarre for every accountant who worked at us. They were like, do you get any donations? And I was like, ew, I don't know how to do that. Like, we get, no, not really. And so why would we think in that box now? So Jesse was a very intentional hire, not just because we went to high school together, but also because honestly, he brings something to the table that I will never have, that I will never, ever have. And that is his point of view. That is his dedication. That is his community. That is his lived experience. And also, he only sleeps 3 hours a night. I sleep 9. So
this is true.
Yeah, but I do want to say that, like, as far as as far as Still Kickin' goes, I've been thinking, and all of the work that I do, I've been thinking a lot about like, what are the spheres of influence that I have, and what are those impacts that I can make, and also how do I do it in a way that is not just like a quick flash in the pan, but something that actually affects change. And what affects change is, honest to God, money. It's where we put our money. It's who we hire. It's where we invest in people. That is what it comes down to. And there are certain areas of my job where I have more impact than others as far as that goes. And Still Kickin' is one where I do have a lot more power than I do at a place like American Public Media, where I produce my podcast, and I'm not the person signing the checks, but I am the person who is the face of the show. So how can I throw that weight around in a way that isn't just to benefit myself, but is to benefit a lot of other people?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I love that. I think so that spoke to a lot of the questions that people asked. Another question I want to ask you is, so like, what made you start doing the work? Because I think there's one thing to talk about it, there's one thing to post about it, but there's another thing to actually do your own research, to make conversations with people, to be intentional about those relationships, even using your platform, right? And inviting people on the show. And we were talking earlier, I do want you to not forget, like, we were talking earlier, and she was saying that she just happened to look at some of the stats from t-shirt sales to listeners on podcasts, and it just so happened, like, literally just so happened, that all of the lower rating ones are ones that she has guests of color on it.
So I think that when we think about like internalized racism, we tend to think about it as like our uncle who's like, I just hate Black people. And you're like, oh, I can definitely, Uncle Ray, that's bad, that's wrong. But in other ways, it is seeped into us and seeped into our behaviors. And so I will say this to our Still Kickin' community, and I don't know how many of you also listen to Terrible Thanks for Asking, but we have looked at the numbers, and we've done this for quite a while. And when we share a story that is of a person of color, but specifically a Black person, the Instagram likes are lower. the donations are lower, the t-shirt sales are lower. When we share a podcast episode where the guest is Black and there's any indication of that in the description or the photo, the listens are lower. And I'm not talking like just incidentally, I am talking significantly. And so, Dr. King had this, I think it was in letter, I should really just have researched this, but where he says like, my fear is the white moderate, right? And in a lot of ways, like I have been the white moderate for sure. We did that. We did the Black Lives Matter donation. And then as a brand, I decided to separate out that activism from myself, because I thought, well, if I'm sneaky, okay, I can take money from people who wouldn't normally give it to a Somali widowed mother of 3. I can take their money from this t-shirt and funnel it to a place that they would never, ever give it to. I can kind of be sneaky that way. And I don't want to do that anymore. I think what got me into this work and like actively doing it is probably my husband dying. I think once you see and really, really experience a deep injustice, and in this case, yes, it's unjust that my husband died of cancer, but more so, I saw how awful the healthcare system was. I saw how it exploited poor people. I saw how Aaron's experience was much, much different than other people that I've met who have the same cancer who are not white men. And once you see one thing and you start pulling it and you get pissed off enough, you will be angry about everything and you will start to say things. And that did lose me some sources of income. And I honestly, although it would be nice to have that money, like I don't want it. I don't want you to buy a Still Kickin' shirt if you cannot say that Black Lives Matter. If you cannot say it, if you have to say, but also, like, I don't want that. So I have made this decision for Still Kickin'. Why am I still talking, by the way, Jesse? The point is I've made this decision as a person who owns a company, who has a lot of people whose income relies on them, to say that I will run this business in the right way. And if it can't survive the right way, it doesn't deserve to survive. So we are hiring more people this year, even though we are currently losing money. Okay, like we're going to hire more people. We are going to actively look for ways to offer people benefits, and we are going to increase our impact. So we are going to be giving more people more money, and I will figure out the how. But the fact is, if we can't do that, then that's on me. And I would rather go out doing it right than trying to be like sort of like, neither here nor there, and oh, like I don't want to upset anybody, and everybody goes through hard things, and all that is true. Everybody goes through hard things, but we don't go through them the same way. We are not experiencing the world in the same way, and there is no unseeing that.
Yeah. I think even to go off of that, if we're talking about COVID in a sense, in Minnesota, more than 25% now. 2 weeks ago it was only 20%, but more than 25% of the cases of COVID are African American people, and so we don't experience things the same way. And I appreciate you saying that. Well, so you were talking because I asked you a question, which is fine, and you can talk, and that's fine too. I think one of the things that I have appreciated is, and I said this on the last call, is you are one person of many that I know, like, that have made it personal to say, you know what, it's not enough for me to just, say Black Lives Matter or post it or whatever, but I'm going to actually use my influence and do whatever I can. I think, so to the question of people who are saying, like, what do? I think the general basis, if we don't answer any other questions, use what you have to make the world a better place for other people. Mm-hmm. You can be a teacher and diversify your book selection. You can, this is a perfect practical example. I Googled education. What did I Google? I don't know what it said, but it was like diverse literature or Black author literature, English learning, something like that. And I found a list. I found a post that had a list of like 7 Black women who were educators, and I just followed all of them and sent them messages like, yo, I was intentionally looking for educators, English language arts folks, because I have a gang of kids, and I told you guys I do, and I'm always looking for more resources to put in front of them because all my kids love to read, thank God. They love to read, and so I'm always like, man, and all of them responded and said, hey, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I see the work that you're doing. Hey, tell me about that call. And I was like, oh, shoot, here we go. But like making it personal and using your leverage. And so that's for if you're a teacher. You could be a construction worker. And at some point you have to eat lunch. Who are you eating lunch with? Who do you decide to say, you know what, I'm going to stop and inconvenience my life for 15 minutes and talk to somebody else? What are you reading? What are you watching?
What are you reading? And not just about Black pain, but like, I mean, there are plenty of shows and movies and books that are not just about racism, but
Right.
that are about just Black people living lives, just regular lives, just like rom-coms and like, and things like it's we create and like perpetuate these really white bubbles for ourselves, and we do it to our kids too. I was raised that way. I grew up in Southwest Minneapolis. Okay, there was one Black person at my Catholic school, and we were a liberal school. Okay, we were very liberal. We had a whole, like, we went deep into social justice work. For who? Like, for who? So I think about that as a parent too. Like, what are the spaces that I bring my kids in, and what are, like, who are the people that I surround my kids with? Because if your kids grow up with homogeny, they will perpetuate this idea, this feeling that we white people are at the center of everything, that a space is existing just for us. Do you know how often I hear white people being like, and I was the only white person there the one time it happens to them? And it's like, okay, like,
It's funny because I even shared, I think I shared, I talk so much, I don't know what the stories I share, but your experience of growing up, going to a school like that, completely opposite of mine, where I went to a Catholic school that was predominantly Black, and I didn't even know it because I was so stuck on like, yo, it's a Catholic school and we got to wear uniforms. But I was so used to seeing people from my community that looked like me. And then when we went to go play whoever across town, it was very clear that they did not look like us. And we walked in and we had to change over here versus actually in the locker room for whatever reason in the 90s. Yes, it happens. And so those are those things that I think about. Even redlining, and I don't know if can I share the text that you gave me about the house? Can I share that?
Yeah.
Okay. So like Nora actually, we both have a bunch of kids. And so she knew that like at some point we were talking about moving and we need more space, which sounds privileged in itself, right? We want more space. We don't need more space. But she was moving. And so she was like, hey, I'm selling my house and I literally would like it to go to somebody who I know could use it and not just another white person who's going to like buy the house and live wherever I live and do whatever. And just those simple things, I'm just like, yo, you didn't have to do that. That was dope. Now, I didn't end up buying the house. But it's one of those, right. But it's one of those things, like there are small ways that you can make an impact that is huge just by like doing something very small. And so again, I want to encourage you to do that and to think about that consistently. Nora, what else? You got something else? I don't remember half the stuff we talked about. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was talking about like intentionality, which I've not, by the way, like, I've not always practiced.
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Have you always been like this?
No, of course not. No, of course not. And I do think if I had not gone to high school where I went to high school, we both went to De La Salle High School. It's a private school in Minneapolis, and it is also a very, very intentionally created community. A very like a truly ethnically diverse community, not where they're like, grab the 3 Black kids, put them in the brochure, but where they're like, I don't know, like scrounge up a white kid who's not like totally, you know, mangy. Like, my high school boyfriend never made it in the brochures. So, you know.
I love it.
Neither here nor there.
Right.
But we went to this very intentionally diverse school. And it was very different from the other private schools that we were in conferences with. So it was different from a Blake, a Breck, a Minnehaha, where you send your kids right now, but also so does Master P. So does that blow your mind, by the way? Like Master P.
I've had conversations with him. It's still
who
weird.
Was on all of our basketball mixtapes. Now sends his children to school with Jesse Ross. That is a full circle moment. That's what we call a full circle moment. Anyways, it was very, very different from these other high schools that we went to. And the energy was different when we played those schools. And it absolutely felt classist and absolutely felt racist. And I will say, as a parent who my child just graduated from that same high school, going to basketball games and seeing them play against some of these schools where a bunch of white boy teenagers will chant things about these kids being poor or hold up money and none of their parents do a thing. Like a lot of these sort of mentalities exist right in front of us and no one says anything. And when you don't say anything, you let it happen. And you bet that I emailed their principal and you bet that I emailed their athletic director and I took photos of all these kids because like there needs to be accountability and we have to hold people accountable in our own community. I don't know if there can be like a show of hands of all the people who do or do not live like in the Minneapolis area who are on this phone call, but regardless of where you live, there is certain language that that white people tend to use to describe the areas that they don't live in. Yep. So how many of you, and you can just, I mean, I'll close my eyes, but like how many of you have called someplace like the ghetto? And what did you mean by that? How many of you have let somebody else say that around you and just not check them? Like how many people have you let say things like, well, it's just like not a very good school and not pressed on that and been like, what do you mean when you say it's not a good school? Yeah. What do you mean? Like, what do you mean? And the thing is, when you are trying to become a person who engages in these things, you feel so self-righteous. Oh my God, it feels so good to be the white lady who's like trying not to be racist and to just like shove it down other people's throats because they're not trying as hard as you. And also, like, you don't have to get there by being like, F you, you're the worst. Like, you get somebody to see themselves by holding up a mirror and asking them, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Until they say it or they figure out what they have almost said and they can actually sit with that discomfort and you don't have to fill the silence for them. So I would say that is a thing that I practice, and I practice it if I'm in the back of your Lyft. I practice it if you are like making small talk with me at the bike shop. I practice it if we are just a bunch of moms hanging out and you're telling me how you just moved to St. Louis Park from North Minneapolis because, you know, like, I don't know. Tell me. Like,
yeah.
Like, what do you mean?
I've got that so much. The school, I'm gonna go on the school piece because there's a question about kids too. Thank you, Nora. I appreciate that. So there's just certain things that I think people often don't realize that like you deal with and you don't have to. I deal with that you don't have to deal with. And so when I'm living in Southwest Minneapolis, I know that the schools are good, right? Quote unquote good. What I don't know is how many of the schools that are, you know, how many of the schools are ready for my daughter? How many of the schools have African-American teachers or even a somewhat population of African American kids that I can send my kid to. I can send a school that I can send my kid to, where she doesn't feel like she's going to be marginalized or isolated or whatever. Versus like we're going to go to the neighborhood school because that's where we go, right? That happened often when I was ready to buy a house, and I just said, "Oh, okay, I live right next to Edina. Why wouldn't I go to Edina Realty? I don't know any realtors at the time." And I say, "Hey, I really want to live in this neighborhood." And the guy goes, "Well, I mean, you could live here, but you're gonna get a better interest rate if you live over here." And literally redlined me without me even understanding what it was until I went home that night and did the research and told him he could kiss my ass when I came back. Like I purposely actually went back to the office to tell him that, and wanted to report him, but just didn't know who to report him to. I mean, I've been in my current house for 4 years, and so we're talking 6 years ago. This is not stuff like we're not talking about stuff that's just in the history books. Like this stuff still happens, and people are still actively perpetuating all of these terrible things. But you have to use your own judgment. And so somebody asked a question around, okay, where I live there's not a lot of people of color. I don't have a lot of friends or people in my circle of colors. Does that make me a bad person? I'm not saying it makes you a bad person, but I would actually challenge you and say, we live in the world of social media where at this point you can pretty much contact anybody, and they most likely will respond, especially now during COVID. And so I'm challenging you and say, like, stop making excuses. Like the first call was like really nice and I was pretty polite. Like right now I'm just kind of gut punching you because I really think that the things will change when we decide to change on the inside. I think I posted that the other day. Like I literally believe that when you have a change on the inside, the things around you start changing. And for somebody, that's something different. And so whether it is talking to your local school board or asking or hiring somebody or saying, hey, do you want to do this? And I would love to. I met the football coach at Eden Prairie High School, which I thought this was going to be a terrible experience if I'm just flat out honest. He called me about a week ago or 2 weeks ago and wanted to come and volunteer in North Minneapolis. I told you guys I've been volunteering at my church. And I was just like, this is going to be a shit show. I already know. A bunch of white kids, football players that are coming to give back to the community. And after I talked to him, I had a better feeling about it. And he was just like, yo, we really want to build good men. And I was like, yo, listen, if you're on that, like, I'm good because we already got a bunch of trashy dudes. And I'm speaking on behalf of the guys. But they came, he brought a bunch of kids, and they were literally the best volunteers that we have had this entire time outside of the Still Kicking crew. Like I just threw that in there. Literally, I mean, some of the most respectful young men. They worked hard. There was a literally a good mix of kids, but even the coaches. And I learned more about him, and he was just like, yo, I literally realized I didn't have to worry about anything growing up in Eden Prairie. I've never had to worry about getting a job. I went to school. It got paid for. I've never seen a student loan payment, anything. He was like, and I just realized one day, like, man, my life is a lot better than other people's. What can I do? And so he, instead of saying, like, I'm going to take you in and have the white savior complex, he said, I want to build an authentic relationship with one person, just one person. And then that one person turned into two. And that one person that he built the relationship with, they actually run a nonprofit together, and they kind of tackled these conversations about what it meant for him to be a white man in Eden Prairie, saying, I don't know what's going on, but I do know what right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And so for those who are asking questions, and feel free now, you can put your questions in there. Like I'm answering these questions as real life examples of you. Like, you gotta do the work. It has to be personal, or you're just gonna keep signing up for calls, and you're gonna keep like reading books, and you're gonna keep staying in the exact same place, perpetuating the same thing over and over and over again. Like, let's just be honest. And that actually is insanity if we're expecting a different result, but we're doing the same thing over and over. And we're all 85 very bright people on here. And so I just want to make sure that I don't miss that, or you don't miss that, what that looks like. There was a question about how can I explain white privilege to people in my life who do not believe that white privilege exists. You know, there are people who believe all types of stuff. I don't know if it's necessarily your job to explain it to them or even to convince them. I think it's your job to say, here's what I believe. You know, I may not have all the facts, but I know that this is right, this is wrong, or that I feel some type of way about this. And then I think the biggest part is you being prepared for their response, because 9 times out of 10, it's usually something that we don't like. And when we don't like something, it makes us uncomfortable. And when we get uncomfortable, we seclude and go back to our comfortable spaces. And so what I love about even having, I mean, there's people on this call that I know, but even going back and forth with Nora, I've had conversations where I'm like, yeah, I totally disagree. and she said, I've totally disagreed. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, let's figure out what the solution is. That's the biggest piece. How do we come to an agreement or a solution? Whether that doesn't mean we have to change our beliefs.
I mean, some people don't believe in coronavirus either.
Literally.
You know, like, and there's no you know, there's no telling them that it actually exists. But I do think that beyond trying to convince people that it exists, if you can really truly focus on the civic engagement process, okay? The fact is, if you live in Minnesota, if you live truly in any city in America, is the product of redlining, is the product of systemic segregation. And we were taught up north, like, but not us, like, no. Just like we were taught, like, back-to-back World War champions, because we care about, no. We cared about our economy, let's be honest. Like, that's what got us into wars. We weren't like, oh, wow, let's be heroes. Anyways, the same thing. Like, we were taught that just by default of not living in the South, things weren't that bad. We weren't that bad. But every city in America has segregation, has intentional segregation. So when you have like a mayor who is all about development, like who does that leave in? Who does that leave out? When you are reaching out, ask why somebody is out in the first place. Like, yeah. Who left them out? Because none of this was an accident, but it did happen with a lot of people watching and not doing anything. And then it becomes normalized. So you have to know every single person that's on your ballot, what they stand for, and beyond voting, hold them accountable for all of the things that they do or do not do while they are in that office.
Yeah.
Hey, Jesse and Nora, can I interrupt for 1 minute?
Oh.
I love the discussion, and I also wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't orient us to time. And there are some questions coming through. So if you want to kind of open it up, and I know you've been addressing them, Jesse, but we have a question from Mackenzie that I think echoes something somebody earlier responded privately to me, asking, like, how do we kind of reach out to Black people and bring them into our circles without offending them, like you're our token Black friend, or without kind of invading in their space. So those are two questions that you can kind of hold in your mind and guide from there however you see fit. But I just wanted to pull your attention both to that and the time. Yeah,
no, I appreciate it. So for those of you all, we're gonna go over, so feel free to go off if you need to. I'm sorry. So I was gonna answer that question, but I want to answer one before that. And so there was a question about why do we think that George Floyd's murder was one to ignite this international response and send so many people into action? I kind of answered it last time, but the second part of the question is what I really like. It says, does it seem genuine, or do you think that Black people are kind of rolling their eyes at all of a sudden the concern and jumping, like, white people basically jumping to action? And I said, you know what? Part of me believes that, yes, I think there's some of it, there's a lot of it that's very genuine. I think there's some of it that is, I don't want to get fired. I don't want to say the wrong thing and get a lawsuit. I heard today, I don't remember the company. Oh, Best Buy here in Minnesota are literally firing people from some tweets that their family members have had. Like people are on edge in a serious way of like, hey, we're trying to make sure that there's got to be some corporate response, right? And so people are trying to make sure that like none of this stuff is happening. But in the same vein, you have a TikTok challenge where if I could show the picture, I won't show it. But if I could show you the picture, there's a TikTok challenge that was happening maybe a week ago where it was the George Floyd challenge. So you got white kids kneeling on white kids and like impersonating the police officer at the very same time. So I think these things happen consistently. And they're almost interchangeably, and you're just like, and I'm watching you guys shake your head, but like somewhere in America, like in the United States, maybe even in Minnesota, somebody thinks that's okay, and they're being told like, oh yeah, that's a good thing to do, and so, is it awkward or insincere whenever you're trying to friend somebody? I mean, yeah, right? Like if you feel like the only goal is for you to get to know one person of color, and that's the only reason why you want to do it is because I told you so. Like, yes, that's ingenuine. Like, we're all humans here. Come on now. But I do think if it's one of those things where you realize and you take that inventory of like, man, you know what? I don't have any people of color in my circle. And I would really like some, but I actually don't like the interaction of people. I think it's one of those things you have to warm up to. And so I'm challenging you to get over the fear, because fear is what has kept us away from building relationships anyway. Fear is what has kept us from allowing opportunities to have real conversations. I'm saying get over the fear and challenge yourself to, whether it's in your circle or it's in somebody else's circle, or it's just reaching out and having a text conversation or following somebody, whatever the way that you can do it, I would say do it. Get over your fear. Get over yourself. But also don't tokenize anyone. And so I think it's actually very, we're in an interesting time where people of color know that most white people are in this space of like, I need to do something. And just realistically, there are more white people than people of color in some aspects. And so they know that there's going to be like, hey, how are you? Hey, I would love to get to know your follower. Can we meet? I got like 7 of them today from people that I don't want to talk to. Right. And so it's like, that's up to me. But I also think if you don't do something, then you're going to stay in the same place. So you can ruminate about it all you want, or you can analyze it all you want, or you can start to act. Thank you for sharing resources. It's awesome. White's kids still stretch. Yeah, you're right. That is very true. Okay, so there was a question about how do I talk to my kids about what's happening, racism, all this stuff. And so there are a couple of things I want. The gist of the conversation, or the point that I want to make, is don't make talking about race or the event just a one-time thing. I think it should be involved in the culture of your conversations. So I'm big on awareness. I'm big on helping people, especially my kids, understand their dynamics, their surroundings, why they say the things that they say, what made them say the things they say. And so I ask a lot of questions, which if you're in my household, it annoys the hell out of you. But I ask questions because, one, I don't like to assume, but I'm also trying to exercise their constructive thinking, right? I'm trying to get them to think about what made them go to that statement versus a different statement. And so, and there are sometimes it's like, yo, a spade is a spade. and I want you to know through deductive reasoning when a spade is a spade and when that was just a judgment statement. And so I try to, the point is, I think if you make it the culture of your conversations, about what's happening. And I'm not saying you need to tell a 5-year-old about the police murdering a kid. Like, I'm not saying that. My 7-year, I don't even know if he understands everything that has happened. But in my co-parenting relationship, when they were with her, she said, hey, Raylan knows, we talked about it. She said, Jesse knows nothing about what's happening. And I was like, well, Jesse needs to know. He's a young Black man. Now, the conversations are different, right? But I think if you make it a culture of what you do, I think it becomes something it brings out that awareness. I think as you make it a culture of what you do, you can introduce different diversity aspects into your life, right? And so one of the things that always brings us together is food. There are ways that you can have, like, let's just take Taco Tuesday. Don't just do Taco Tuesday because it's Tuesday. Do Taco Tuesday and make it an experience of why, like, the history of tacos and where it was created and where it comes from and why it's important and what it's everywhere in our world, right? And we have Americanized the hell out of it, but like, you can use that. You can use all these heritage months that people don't know about to just kind of say, like, yo, we're going to learn about this today. It's just one of those things. I think you can consistently make it part of the culture. And there was one other point I was going to make. Give me a second. Oh, update your home library and what you watch. So I intentionally will watch stuff that I have no interest in. I personally have no interest in watching kid shows, but I will challenge my kids to say, hey, what is the family about? What's the dynamics? And I'm actually very amazed that they will go, oh man, this is a show about a Hispanic family, and they do this and they do that, and they can tell me kind of the rundown, but they know those questions are coming. And my wife didn't come from the background of doing that, and so there are things that you can do. Like when Spider-Man came out, everybody loves Spider-Man, but people were bothered that Intro to Spider, the whatever it's called, the introverse, whatever, the multiverse. He was a Black dude. My kids loved it. Now that is because they're Black, but also how diverse the cast was, and intentionally they had certain music and different, and it was just amazing. And we talked about it, like, did you notice that? Did you see that? And so as you're thinking about kids, like, what's on your bookshelf? What are the things that your kids are reading? What are the things that you're talking about that you're watching? One of the dopest movies is right now Trolls World Tour. I cried like 5 times in that movie. I was like, this is beautiful, because it's not only talking about the differences in how that one hit home for a lot of people if you really pay attention. And I'll say this too. I think, wow, just I think that if you change the way that you really see things. Now, disclaimer, I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer, and so everything in my life is always content. Even this, everything in my life is always content. And so I don't just watch TV. I watch TV and see what can I get from it. And if I can't get anything from it, I'm actually not interested. My wife loves watching trash TV every now and then, and I think that that's okay. Like, you got to do what you got to do. I really do love that movie. Yes. I have literally a page in my phone full of notes, and I was like, this is joy. And I did cry. No lie, I did cry. But it just talked about, like, the differences in how we split. I mean, it literally was like watching our world go these different directions, and one group of people thought that their way was the best way, and they were trying to take over, colonize. I could teach all day about that movie. So sorry, I got a little carried away. So back to my point, like, use those opportunities. Adrian, you can feel free to stop me if you need to, but I didn't see any other questions in there.
I mean, I think that all of those are great suggestions. And I've had a few other questions, and I think we touched on this a little bit, just about maybe how to have conversations with people who have different perspectives and who are coming from different angles. And I know, Nora was talking about, and you, Jesse, were saying not so much trying to convince them of any particular point, but stating facts and kind of how you see it. And along that line, Some people are wondering if you have specific kind of thoughts or recommendations for people who are, you know, maybe contesting that all lives matter or that blue lives matter because police officers are killed. And I know that that's a really charged question. Like, that's a really emotional place to be coming from. Yeah. But wondering if you have any thoughts about that particular aspect of disagreement or differing perspectives.
Yeah, so I don't disagree that blue lives matter or all lives matter. The point of Black Lives Matter came from was that Black lives don't get seen the same way as every other life. Like, to the core of what the mantra and the statement came out, that's what it was for, or that's what it meant. And so when people, it's like when, and maybe you've said this, I'm not offended, but here's why you shouldn't say it. I don't see color. I just love everybody. You are immediately dehumanizing, deculturalizing any person that has color. And I know you mean well, like you mean like I see you as a person, but that's not what you said. You literally said to the darkest person on the call that you don't see my color. And so I think about it in that aspect of, I know some really great police officers, like a ton of them. And I called a bunch of them whenever this went down, because I was just like, yo, how are you doing? Because they have a whole different context than I have and whole different information than I have. But to use that to combat, it's like, you like tomatoes and I like potatoes. Which one is better? Neither, because it's your preference. The difference between the Black Lives Matter is there shouldn't be a preference. It should be that every life is considered valuable and important, and not everybody feels that way. And unfortunately, we have police officers that don't feel that way. But neither does the KKK. Yep, I went there. Sorry.
Jesse and I have very different approaches.
Sorry.
I think that okay. Here's how I frame it to you. I have family members who are police officers. I have a weirdly high amount of people who follow me who are married to or children of police officers who, when I was like, no more police, were like, but my dad, I love him. And I was like, great, that's so great. I love my cousin, and my cousin is part of a deeply rotten institution. Just like I love my dad, he's dead, so now he's like a saint. However, my dad fought in a very unjust war that decimated another nation. So at some point, we have to pull apart the love that we have for people as individuals and their involvement in unjust systems. So if you are looking for resources about that conversation, I don't have conversations with people who have not done any reading outside of Twitter. That's something that I say. I say, here, I want us both to start from the same place. So please go to, there's the book, The End of Policing, is free right now on Verso Books, VERSO books.com. You can get the ebook for free. MPD 150 has done an incredible job at pulling together these resources, and they have an audio version of their report. It's a 150-year history of the Minneapolis Police Department whose learnings can extrapolate to any other police department in the US, including Phoenix, where I live now. So you have to have a place to start from. So when people say to me, but like all lives matter, yes, sure. And there's that analogy that goes around the internet, which is like, so would you bust into a funeral and be like, but my dad died too, why aren't you crying over him? And you're like, sure, yes, that is also sad. Right now, we're gonna have this, we're gonna focus on this one, and that is okay. And I think anybody who tries to tell you that the lived experience of being Black in America and being, an Irish immigrant 5 generations ago is the same is willfully ignorant. And I think I have all these vintage books. There's so much that people do not know about our country, about our cities. I was looking at this vintage little golden book of America that my dad had. He got it when he was 11 years old. I passed it down to me, and let's just look in the back, see what it says about slavery. Nothing. The word appears 3 times, and it's about how they almost had to end slavery because they just didn't have enough for the slaves to do. Luckily, Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. What a hero. And then there's a painting of slaves being like, yeah, we got a job. This is so great. It's like, that message got into my dad's brain. Okay. And maybe he didn't even realize it, but like, how did those messages inform our parents' parents, and therefore us? So we have a lot to learn and unlearn. And I think that it is okay for us to ask other white people to not even a light Google, to sit down and read a book. It's like, sit down and read a book. Like, it is okay. You can love your grandpa who was a police officer, and also the Minneapolis Police Department overwhelmingly voted on their union president. Who is he? Bob Kroll. He is a known white supremacist. Our police chief, Rondo, who's the first Black police chief, the suit he filed was against Bob Kroll. Only 14 police officers in Minneapolis, in the Minneapolis Police Department, have been like, yeah, that's, we're really sort of against things. Like a very light statement, by the way. So 14. What do the other, a couple hundred, almost 1,000 feel like? So I think that we have to, it's on us to push so that people like Jesse don't have to be like, yes, I agree. Like, yes, I agree. Your life matters. Like, we have to push on the feeling that other people have, that other white people have, that their comfort is the most important thing, because it is uncomfortable for somebody to say like, yeah, like, white privilege. The first time I heard that, I was like, ew. What? Me? But I worked so hard. I didn't. I'll just tell you that right now. Like, I worked medium hard through my life, and I received so many advantages. My dad worked hard, and also he had a lot of advantages. Okay, he was. We'll get into him at a later date, and I can say all this because he's dead. There will be no rebuttal. But yeah, so that Jesse can be nicer about that, and maybe even feel like you have to, but like, I don't feel that way anymore. And I have had really productive conversations online, which is not the best way to have conversations, by the way, in typing, but I've had productive conversations by saying, I hear that you want to talk about this. So if you want to have this conversation with me, you have to go read this thing, and then we can revisit. So,
well, I think that's a great point. So to a certain extent, right, you can do that. And so the thing that I wrestle with every single day, I think somebody asked me last time, like, are you angry? And I said, hell yeah, I'm angry all the time. Literally feel like I'm walking like the walking Hulk. But I can be angry and be upset, and I'm the angry Black guy. But Nora can be angry and be upset, and she's just Nora. And that's just the reality of the world that we live in. And so I don't have the luxury of cussing you out, even if I feel like it, right? Like 83 people on here now. Somebody got mad and they left, right? So I don't have the luxury of being able to tell you exactly how I feel the way I want to, and you receive it the right way because of the way that the world is and the way that we were raised. So I have developed the way of telling you very nicely and punching you in the gut, but softly, right, that you shouldn't do this. And that is a result of all this BS that has happened over historical time. So while we're talking about like the cotton gin like, I heard a stat the other day that in the last 60 years, more Black people have been killed by the police than during slavery, actual slavery in the 1800s, in the last 60 years. And I was just like, this is crazy. And things were bad, like bad during slavery time.
I have this golden book I could show you. It looked pretty good.
Right. And that's the thing. It's just like, so yeah, I mean, I could say it that way, but you wouldn't receive it. And let's just be honest, which is why, now the difference is I genuinely know that there are so many people of color that are upset that they can't even have the conversation. I just feel like the way that I'm built and in the call of my life, I don't know, is I have this ability to be able to connect with people, which is the only reason why I'm here on the call. I wanted to do it, but like I know that I have an ability. And so if I don't use my gift and you don't use your gift and you don't use your gift, then we're all gonna be sitting in the same spot. And so that's why I keep saying like make it personal. But I'd be like lying to you if I told you it didn't bother me sometime. So yeah, that's it. That's my
and whatever mirror like you can hold up in your organization, not everybody is like the founder of their company. Not everybody is like, you know, it feels like they have like intense power, but everybody can question things, because a lot of this is pure complacency, right? Is saying like, well, like, I mean, we just picked the best applicant, but it's like, I mean, well, did you? And like, or did you make an internal hire? Like, we have to really interrogate all of these systems, because it cannot be accidental that everybody at the top of the company that you work for probably looks like you. Like, that is not accidental. So, and it can't be accidental the way Still Kickin is built, by the way. Like, it all has to be like intentional. So choose the thing that you are going to be intentional about and be like, act it. Like, it has to be like an action that you take. And sorry, Jesse, you have a question to answer. Apologies.
Oh no, you're good. So we're 11 over, and what I'm gonna do, so I just put this link in here so that Jordan and them don't have to send out 80 emails. There's a link that just says basically bit.ly Still Kickin PP. If you want to know more, you want to have a conversation, just click the link, fill out your info. Oh, thank you, Jordan. And that is like, you can get in touch with me. So that was the first thing I wanted to say. I would love to, I'm only going to go maybe for another 10 minutes. So if you want to stay on 9:30 at the latest, but like maybe for another 10 minutes. I want to do something different. I would love if someone has a question, and it could be a question that somebody already asked or answered, but like I would love to unmute somebody, either Andrea or Rebecca, and like give people an opportunity to ask a question. Now, only ask a question. Don't give a statement. Don't tell me you're like thankful and proud. Like, I really appreciate you for that. But I just want to, Breon, do you have your hand raised? Awesome. I can't unmute you, but somebody can.
Let's get on that.
I unmuted myself.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely. That works.
Okay. So I have a friend who's from Minnesota, actually, but she lives in Davis, and I'm going to visit her in 2 weeks. And she has 2 young children, like 3 and 5. Yeah. And she told me when we were speaking the other day that she doesn't want to talk about race. She's trying to protect them because her kids don't make any comments about the other kids being different colors or whatever. And so she doesn't want to introduce it too soon. But my thought is, and I'm an educational psychologist, is that no, we need to start talking when they're young, because how are they going to know these kids are being treated differently than they are? And I just wanted to know what your thoughts are and what can I share with her to encourage her to talk with her kids?
Yeah. So is she a psychologist at all?
No, she's a solar engineer.
Yeah. So she doesn't know shit about what you're talking about. So you should tell her everything. Like, give her all the info of why you're the expert and why this makes sense. And if she decides that she's, I'm sorry, this is what I have to like center myself. If she decides that she wants to continue down the road, then unfortunately that's her cross to bear. But you're the expert, you have the information and the data, and you can continue to just bombard her with it and say, like, I'm telling you, like, I can give you examples of why that this is important. Some people are just hard-headed. Some people are just stubborn. But I love that you are even thinking about like, hey, I need to tell you this. And I think sometimes when you have those like, hey, it's not my place, but I couldn't not say it because of my history, my background, my expertise. I think that, insert whatever. I think that that's the best thing you can do.
Okay,
So,
I appreciate it. And I wanted to talk to her in person. She's
yep,
a very nice person, and I know she believes she's doing the right thing, but
yep,
to me, she's hurting the kids because they don't know how the other children are being treated.
absolutely, yep.
Yeah.
You're right. You're good.
Okay,
Um,
thank you.
no problem. I'm gonna get to Matt's question, but maybe there's another person that wanted to ask a question too. Okay, so let me read it. Is geographical cultural segregation like in Minneapolis? That's everywhere too, by the way. What is the most genuine and living way to enter a Black community like a church or school or community space? I've started from a place of learning and listening. Other proactive ways need to get out of our white circles before we send our daughters intensely to a mostly Black school. And Matt, can you get off mute?
Yeah, I'm here.
Where are you? Where, like, city? Sorry.
I'm in Minneapolis. I'm in Northeast.
Oh, word.
So I'm
Where your kids go to school?
actually like 6 blocks from DSL.
Where do your kids go to school?
So they went to Prodeo Academy.
Yeah, how was that?
Now they're at New City. Yeah.
All right. I don't love Perdeo, but I have my own personal reasons for that.
Yeah, we tried it for about 2 or 3 years, and
Yep.
I think the school could do a lot better in terms of just serving like
for
the
sure.
needs of the kids are more holistic, and they need a lot of social services, and
Yep.
they don't have a lot of representation of Black teachers, unfortunately.
Oh no.
Even though they're pulling in kids from North Minneapolis and primarily Black kids that have a lot of extra needs.
Oh
Because
yeah, no, I know
poor.
all about the school. I tore them
Yeah.
a new one one day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so to your question, I think that
Yeah.
you are doing what I would say do, like trying to be intentional about where you place your kids, who their friends are around, who they
Mhm.
grew up with, but also even the way that you are even analyzing what's happening. I think you just got to keep, like, it's one of those you just got to keep finding and trying. Selfish plug, I will say, there are some multicultural and multi-ethnic churches that are around. I literally don't know of a bunch because I've been at my church and I think we do a decent job, right? But it is a Black pastor. I go to Sanctuary Covenant Church. What I was gonna say before I even said all that was like continue to do what you're doing and find different spaces, and we talk to people. And so whether like you may, not you Matt, but somebody may want like to be, I don't know if people have thought about this, I'm gonna just say this out loud. If you are a person of faith and you grew up and the pastor was white, have you ever thought about attending the church where the lead pastor is not white? That might be a good place to like think about it. If you haven't, okay. If you have, great. But continuing to put yourself in places where there are families that are multi-ethnic or multi-generational or different classes, all of those things, I think is really just, you just got to find your people.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love for
That's
you to
really
be my
helpful.
people. So I'm not like downing any other church either, just for everybody's record. I just don't know of a lot of multi-ethnic churches. I know of a lot of churches that say they're multi-ethnic,
Mm-hmm.
and I've worked there and they're not. So hopefully did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Okay,
Yeah.
no problem. And then Jennifer, is there a point of whiteness in Black spaces hurts more than it helps? Absolutely. Yep. I mean, everybody has had that friend who like, I really want to help you, but now they're like invading your space and they're getting on your last nerves and they're talking too much and you want them to shut up. Yes, there is an opportunity for that to happen. So I think it's one of those you have to self-assess. Literally, am I talking too much? Literally, am I invading your space? Am I overstaying my welcome? Am I asking too many questions? Am I talking more than I'm listening? I think that all of those are things to think about. of how whiteness in Black spaces can hurt more than it helps. And there's some times where people just like, yo, we need some space. There was a call I did last Saturday for my church, which is it's actually a very multi-ethnic church. And I do groups like this all the time. And so the guy who, dang, I might be telling too much information, but that's okay. The guy who is associated, I'll just say that, it's not the pastor, but the guy who's associated with it, he's a micromanager. He does a lot. And he's a social psychologist. And so I think he thinks that he's doing what he's supposed to do, and he's extra. He's super extra. And he basically was like, this is like the day, it's like 2 days, no, it's the day or two after George Floyd was murdered, and was like, hey, are you going to send out that thing? And this isn't the first time he's asked me and tried to micromanage me. And I just told him I thought he was doing too much. So he wanted to talk because, you know, when you offend somebody, you want to talk. And I said, I don't feel like talking. And he was hurt. And he literally saw me maybe 2 days later and was like, man, I really want to talk. And I was like, I don't have the energy to have this conversation. There are more important things in the world happening than for you to be like, for your feelings to be hurt. And he was really offended by that. But I said all that to say there was the call we did that following Saturday. There were 3 white guys on it and 4 Black men. And I was just like, hey, their names, the white guys. I want to check in. I need you to do it really quick because I really think we need to have this space for some of the African-American men to just talk about how they feel. And they respected it. I don't think that they would have disrespected it, but it was one of those times where it's like, hey, I need to do more listening than talking. And so I think that those spaces are created. All right, one more person, maybe. Is there a question? I can't see you. Or if you have a question, you're on video, that would help you too.
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Ooh.
Can I ask another one if somebody else isn't going to go?
I mean, if nobody's going to go, sure.
Okay, so I just retired and I'm used to volunteering out of the country working with kids. But I want to do something, this has really inspired me to do something related to social justice. And do you have ideas of good organizations that I can volunteer with to help the cause?
Yeah, but before, can I ask you a different question? Why have you always volunteered, or no, not always. I'm paraphrasing what you said. I'm sorry, it's getting late.
No problem.
You said something about going, did you say overseas, out of town?
Yeah, I've been volunteering in Nepal, and also because kids rescued from trafficking, and in Ethiopia, older orphans impacted by AIDS, that kind of thing.
Okay. So this is a direct question, but it has nothing to do with you. So sure. This is how I have to preface my stuff because I'm very direct. When I hear people say that, I think that stuff is great. I always wonder, there's stuff like that happening like close in the neighborhood too. There's sex trafficking happening at the Mall of America. It's like one of the top spots in the country. The Mall of America is closed now. Yeah, well, they're open again, but whatever. So I always wonder, like, yes, I think that stuff is great. I always wonder, why not do it closer to where you live? It would be cheaper a little bit, but also, if you send me a message, I will do my best to get you some of that information, because off top, I can't think of.
Okay, that would be great. I'll send you a message.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would say the reason why I've gone to the places I've gone is because a lot of people won't. Yeah. And I'm okay being in tough situations, so I don't mind having those experiences. You know, a lot of people will do things local because it's more comfortable. And I kind of wanted to push myself too. But I want to continue to do that now because I really can't go there because of what's going on in the world. And also I just finished chemo in January, so I can't go. But I want to make good use of my time here. And so I will send you a message about that.
Yeah, please. Yeah, I think that I know that there's got to be some places locally that you can help with. I just, in my head, I'm like.
No worries. And I'm in Arizona, so it makes it a little more difficult, but.
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
We're going to put Nora to work. Nora will
find yeah, Bryn, I have some places to send you.
See?
I've been doing research.
Excellent. Thank you, Nora.
Also, while people are still here, I do want to say, like what I said earlier, like about numbers going down when we talk about things like this, not just on at Still Kickin', but on Terrible Thanks for Asking. That's a red flag for me, and it's made me think about by the way, thank you for being here, everybody. You are outliers just for being here, but what kind of a community have I built when we have 100,000 people, 30,000 people, and 100 will show up for this conversation, and maybe everyone's just very busy. Maybe it's all scheduling. And also like all these other numbers, I think to me, they start to tell a story. And if I want this organization to represent what I think it could represent, then your being here is very important. You're telling other people about this work is important. You're showing up to things when it's not convenient or comfortable or doesn't make you feel as good as just knowing that your money will go to a baby who has cancer. Like it's very, very important. So thank you. And also like that is an accountability that Jesse, Jordan, the team, and also my community at large, all of you can hold me to. So
yeah, that's dope. Thank you. That's a great way to a great way to end. So one of the things that I have implemented, it's a question mark because I suggested, but we're doing, let's just call it that, was making sure that everything that we do is more thoughtful and intentional. And so there have been times where we've had conversations and hey, we're thinking about doing this, and I would literally say, and I haven't even been around that long, but I would say, let's wait to see what the needs are, because the typical response for majority culture is like, let's throw money at it, right? And I'm not saying that was what the suggestion was, but the beauty, I believe, of having someone like me and having a diverse thought process around a company there can be a million great ideas, but what's the right one? And I think that that's the one thing that I want to leave you with, is like figuring out how to make a decision and then make it right. So not just randomly throwing ideas up and just saying, I'll pick that one. Like actually making a decision and then making it right. Sometimes you're going to get it wrong. That is where we grow. That's where you are supposed to fail at something. And so that's an opportunity for us to grow and to learn, but also like, don't be paralyzed by just analyzing what you should do and the thinking, well, I don't want to make the wrong decision. Like, just do it. Go ahead.
I'd also like to say you don't have to invent the wheel. And in fact, the wheel does not need your inventing. It has been invented. There are people who have done the work, pulled together the resources. You do not need to start your own thing. You need to find the people who are doing it and put your wind behind their sails. That's what you got to do. Part of Jesse's suggestion, by the way, he's talking about a conversation with me where I was like, dude, I have this idea. Here's what we're going to do. And he was like, hey,
no,
slow it down. We're going to wait to see what the need is in Minneapolis before we jump in and figure it out. So what does our team do? We know how to show up. Lindsay Wenner is our COO at Still Kickin'. She knows how to operationalize stuff. She's over at Jesse's church figuring out how to project management, like a donation system that they haven't done before, and how she can operationalize it and give that information to other churches and other drop sites to make it easier. It's not sexy work, but we didn't need to make our own drop site. We didn't need to do that. We needed to get behind people who are already doing the work and put our efforts there. So there's a Northside Relief Fund that's rebuilding businesses. Through Jesse, we started one that is for primarily individuals, primarily for individuals in North Minneapolis. So if you got Jordan just put the link in, cool. So if you got value out of this evening or a previous evening and it was more than $10, put the difference into this fund. Because moving forward, a lot of the things that we are doing on the business side are going to specifically fulfill this fund. Why? Because we're based in Minneapolis. And who benefited from the redlining in Minneapolis and the racial covenants in Minneapolis that didn't allow Black people to own property and build generational wealth? This girl, okay? Myself and other people. So this is our way of living out our value of equity over equality. So this is essentially a Still Kickin' reparations fund. I'm spitballing. People do not love when I just jump on with messaging, but that's what it is. And that's what it is. Okay. Like, we have extra rent to pay. We have extra rent to pay. And even though I didn't get like funding for my business, even though, yes, it was like, you know, it's slightly harder for me than it would be for a white man. Like, it was also infinitely easier. Minneapolis is home to the worst racial economic disparities in the country. So the money in this fund is going to go to individuals. It's going to help them do whatever they need to. Do they need to save it and build some wealth for their future? Great. Do they need it to like just, you know, pay some bills in the interim? Great. One of the core values of Still Kickin' is that we don't pretend like we know everything. So if we give you money, we're trusting you to make your own decisions with it. And that's a whole nother conversation about how sometimes white nonprofits and white saviorism says like, okay, I will give you this money. I'll give you this money, but I want to see how you spend it. Okay. I want to see the receipts. I want to make sure you did it right. And I think that's fucked up. And I always have. So.
Oh, okay. That's partly why I had to stop working where I worked.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, how do I know where you need to spend this money? But like, North Minneapolis has been in crisis for a long time. Long before a single physical fire started there, it was cut off by 94. Now I'm on a soapbox. Anyone who's from Minneapolis is like, oh, I get it. But like, wherever you live, like, look at where the freeways are. Yeah. Okay? Because those were built intentionally. And in Minneapolis, they raised two vibrant Black communities and separated North Minneapolis from the rest of the city. Cincinnati, huge problem. I lived there too. Phoenix, where I live now, huge problem. Huge problem. So this is us doing what we can do, and also like not reinventing the wheel. What have we always done? We've given money directly to people. How are we doing it right now? More intentionally.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and that's just honestly, that's Jesse. That's the value of having a person who is not me here in this organization. Truly.
Yeah.
So.
That's dope. Well, I'm gonna wrap up with another call. So Nora did exactly what I was about to do. This is why we're on the same team. This is perfect. And if you're not gonna give money, you need to do the work. Like, I need you to do your own work. And so one of the reasons why, one of the things that we are gonna do, and I'm saying going to because we haven't implemented it yet, is really taking time to understand our own intercultural like context and what we're doing. There's a assessment and stuff that we're going to take, and we're going to talk about like some of the stuff that we have seen growing up and how we can become better individuals, how we can start becoming more aware, but also like everyone has work to do. And so if you're interested, that's part of the reason why I wanted to make sure that if you wanted to get in contact with me, those are things that we are going to do as a company. And so we haven't done it yet, and I purposely said this here. They already know about it, but if you are trying to figure out what else to do, that I'm going to tell you to do the work. And doing the work doesn't just mean taking an assessment. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you probably need to do and can do. And so I'm going to end with that. I really appreciate you for jumping on. I just hijacked this from Adrian. Did you have anything, Adrian?
I'm not even needed today. Okay. I'm not needed. You guys got it. I mean, recap, be intentional, put the wind in other people's sails, don't reinvent the wheel, get uncomfortable, do things when it's inconvenient. Spend your privilege. Spend it like you've got to get it out of your hands. Okay. So like, spend it. Be the person who says something to your boss who thinks like it's okay to make like that joke. Be the person who does that. Like, at some point, like, you need to be the person who puts your comfort, your body, your well-being in the way.
Like you have to. And Jesse was like, how do you teach your kids about racism? Like, it's on me as the mother of 3 white boys. And a girl, but to say, like, when you see this shit, you call it out and then you get in the way, you interrupt it. Okay. Like, you do that. And as adults, like, we have to do that too. And we don't, because, oh my God, I don't know. It's like, you know, my friend's friend from college, and I don't want to cause a scene. Like, you don't have to cause a scene, but you do have to interrupt it. Like, you cannot just be the person who lets it go. And there are ways to spend your clout, and you can do that within your organizations. You can do that in many spheres. Like, there are ways to do that, and ways that I am doing that. And I don't know, if you have any other suggestions, hit me up. Sorry, Adrian, I'm the worst fucking person. I cannot be on a call. I'm so fucking lonely. I can't stop talking. I'm so lonely.
I think the only thing that I have left to add is for all of you 66 people who are remaining, 65 not including myself, please use Jesse as a resource. He's literally devoted his life to having these conversations about diversity and equity and inclusion and privilege. And we have a lot of questions. Clearly, we still haven't gotten to everything. So within this chat, there's a link where you can send him questions. We'll send it out in a recap email that will get to you soon. So use him as a resource. He sent out his phone number, for God's sakes, on social media. Like, he wants to be there. So Jesse, thank you for doing the work that you don't have to, that we as white privileged people need to do, but you are helping us. So thank you, and please use him. We'll get that information in the email next week or soon when we get it out.
Yeah, just look for it. Here we go.
Yeah, keep your eye out.
Y'all have a good.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Bye, Nora.
Oh, hi.